Hi, hello, and welcome to the Cheap Seats on this international week. We're here recording slightly earlier than normal, but you'll have to figure out when we're recording this because it's international week and there's no games on the weekend, unless if you are an England supporter or a Portugal supporter or support Spain. Then this week might be just as important to you, but we're going to discuss how important it is later on in the show. Welcome again. Please do remember to like, review, subscribe, and place your comments on the comment section in the YouTube channel. This is where you can interact with us on our various YouTube channels. This week, the guys are here, full squad, the starting five, to use the basketball reference. Gents, how are you guys doing?
Good, thanks. Good. And Paul, how are you?
Better than Arsenal.
Better than Arsenal.
There we go. I don't have another reference for another team because everyone seems to have won and my team has lost points. Gents, this week was a funny one, and there was an interesting situation that was happening with the managers complaining about playing too many midweek games in Europe, and then also having to play for someone early games, for others very late games on a Sunday. But there's been an inconsistency in the table that you wouldn't normally see on a normal season with the top four. And there's a lot of reasons as to why the top four have been inconsistent. Manchester City are in the bottom half. Manchester United are hanging there and thereabouts in mid-table territory, which some may say it's where they rightfully belong. But then Liverpool also have been inconsistent at the top. So too Chelsea, who are now starting to seemingly find some sort of a rhythm under Frank Lampard after he's gone through multiple formations. But what do you guys think is the reason for the inconsistency around the last season's top four? Because they were the best in the league, but they're just not showing it. Wahid?
Paul, can I just take a step back to where you mentioned international football? And I think for the viewing audience, I'd just like to share my screen just for 2 seconds and show you guys just something.
This could end in tears.
I'm very concerned right now.
You can see.
We all want Dean. Were you guys trying to be? What is it? Southgate.
Southgate's
little. Football was coming home.
And did it come home?
It doesn't matter.
It went home and it stayed there. It was in lockdown.
So, Wahid, what's going on with this inconsistency that's happening with these big teams?
So Paul, I think that the big thing with the inconsistency we're seeing around the big teams is twofold. I think number one is that when without a good pre-season, I think that the gap in quality between the good teams and the less big teams, and when I talk about less big teams, I mean teams like Arsenal and Spurs in particular. That kind of gets reduced. It kind of gets reduced when clubs haven't been able to work on the fitness and conditioning of their players. That's sort of where you start seeing the gulf in class reduced, and you start seeing smaller clubs bridging the gap to the big clubs. And I think that's issue number one. And issue number two is that is European football in general. I think that the European season ended very late last year, which gave the bigger teams even less time to prepare for the season. And coupled with the fact that the schedule at the moment is relentless for clubs in the Champions League and the Europa League. You've got every single Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and Saturday again. It's relentless schedule. And for teams who've exerted themselves in the Champions League, for example, United against Red Bull had to contain the Leipzig press. That was very taxing on the players. I mean, the sheer amount of running that the players needed to do in midweek would be extremely tiring on them, considering that they played 3 days before that and 2 days after. So I think that what we're seeing in this inconsistency in Premier League form could be as a result of the midweek exploits of these clubs. From that perspective, you need to remember that the clubs playing in the Champions League can't rotate during midweek, whereas the clubs playing in Europa League can somewhat rotate their squads in the midweek games, which will lead to clubs playing in the Champions League being a little bit more inconsistent on weekends, I think, than the clubs playing in the Europa League.
So, Dean, you've just heard Wahid say that Arsenal and Spurs are playing against accountants and lawyers. But I'm not going to talk about Spurs because you guys have done quite well. Manchester City, what is their problem? Because it doesn't seem they've got a very large squad. I think the largest squad out of all the teams in the top four. What is their problem? Because Pep can put out two different sides and win on a Wednesday night and on a Saturday or a Sunday morning or Sunday midday. What's going on there? Is it just what Wahid said, or is Pep losing his mojo?
I think first thing, it's definitely tough on Man United, the midweek games, when they throw every single player they have forward, like we saw against Istanbul. When you're on the bar. So it is a lot of running that United have to do.
Attacking in herds. That's what it is.
It is a lot. But yeah, I think City have, you kind of look at the teams that are struggling, and look at Liverpool, Van Dijk's out, so they don't really have a backup. Where you look at City, they have great backup for almost every single position on the field, and you kind of think, well, then they shouldn't be inconsistencies, right? But the one thing that I've definitely seen, and I think yesterday was a great example of that against Liverpool, it's almost the game's really being run, or the City that we're used to seeing really sees when Kevin De Bruyne is running the show and he's pulling strings, and he's the one that's dominating that field, right? And not that he didn't pull a De Bruyne performance yesterday, but he's definitely not. It's almost he's looking frustrated with himself as well as his teammates. There was a case 2 weeks ago where he was getting frustrated with Mahrez. Like, you could very clearly see when Mahrez had the ball and De Bruyne was making runs, he was getting frustrated. And it's almost like you get the sense where those City players aren't as happy with each other as what they were last year. I think they are missing Aguero. Jesus is good, but I don't think he's an Aguero. And yeah, De Bruyne, for me, I paid particular focus on him because I was looking at him from an FPL perspective. But paying that attention to him, he doesn't look like he's enjoying the football that much. I mean, you look at the defense, they brought in Diaz. Kyle Walker's playing probably better than he has ever. Cancelo's great. It's that creativity in that midfield. I don't think it's really coming together as much as we saw last year. That's really where the heartbeat is of that team. And if that's not pulling together, that team, although they're still great and they can still go out and win games, I just don't think they're going to be as domineering as what we've seen in the past until that gets sorted out, which I don't know where it's going to come from. They definitely got the players to do it, but it's just not gelling at the moment. It's not clicking.
Okay. So I'm going to come to you last because you seem to be the happier one out of everyone else's whose teams are they talking about.
Can I add to that City thing, and that I know Dean's mentioned the creativity and he's mentioned De Bruyne, and yeah, I get that, but I think that what you have seen this season is a hole left by two players. Number one is the hole left by David Silva. David Silva was maybe the gel that allowed the whole City unit to play together, and they're adjusting to a side without David Silva, who, in my opinion, is their greatest ever player at the club. So it will take a bit of time to adjust to the lack of David Silva. I think Pep might have overthought the lack of a David Silva a bit, because Bernardo Silva is a like for like replacement that could have gone into the David Silva role in central midfield. They seem to be thinking too much about this, because I mean, they have tried Bernardo in the David Silva role before and it's worked very well.
Mhm.
The other one that they seem to be missing is the Fernandinho of 3 years ago. Fernandinho is still at the club, though not the player he was 3 years ago. He's sort
But
of playing
he's
as
not
centre back.
playing in his normal position, though. He's
No,
playing
no.
at centre back.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So
okay.
the Fernandinho of 3 years ago was a central defensive midfielder who allowed the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva, Raheem Sterling to play with freedom. They brought in Rodri, who is a defensive midfielder, but not the same type of defensive midfielder that Fernandinho is. Rodri, you'd think of along the lines of a Michael Carrick, who needs a hard man next to him in order to go and dictate games. He's not the hard man. He's not the anchor that Fernandinho is, who will allow the attacking players the freedom to go and attack. So they are missing the Fernandinho, the central defensive midfielder who played in that side for the 2-3 years while they were the all-conquering Manchester City, and they haven't replaced him with a like-for-like replacement. And I think that's where you're seeing City trying to find and adjusting to a new normal within their squad.
But here's my other point on that City thing. So I get that the whole that Fernandinho's the shadow of who he was. But with all the money that they've spent and the abilities for them to have spent that, is it because I'm assuming Pep is would have noticed what we're saying. It's not like, I don't think this is new. So why didn't he go out to go get a hard man person? I'm assuming even go and go try see if he can't pry Kante out of Chelsea's hands or something like that. And if I look at Spurs' squad, Højbjerg seems a lot more like a hard man. I remember last year he got a red card against I think the same City side where he just went in guns blazing. The market is there for these types of hard men. Where are they? Why didn't they buy them? Or is Pep trying to one up everyone else in the league like he normally does?
Well, Paul, you bring up. In fact, what I love about this is every single one of the points I would have made about City has been made. Missing David Silva, Fernandinho, and the key thing here is Fernandinho really is that position unlocks the entire City attack. Without having that deep lying, tough tackling central midfielder, you don't have the players being able to make the runs in behind. And so you're seeing a proper negating of the skills of Raheem Sterling. But when you look at it from a global perspective, and you're trying to say, well, where are these players? Kante really isn't even that. And we're finding that at Chelsea, that although he's been played as a sort of deep-lying DM a little bit more now, his game really is predicated on being able to run up and down, providing different aspects to the game. What you're looking for is a bit of a Blaise Matuidi, somebody along those lines who can really get stuck in, a Wilfred Ndidi perhaps as well. The only issue with those types of players is that they don't seem to have the same skills that Fernandinho has. He is so comfortable on the ball.
Technical ability, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The technical ability just isn't there. They will tackle the heck out of you, but then you and him will both be there looking at the ball afterwards. And so it's a question of what you do from there. And I think that as much as they've spent money, the issue is sometimes you think you've got it in the player till they get to your club. And let me just say, Bakayoko at Chelsea was exactly that. We were like, oh, finally, we've got a box-to-boxer. We all have visions of Michael Essien, and it turned out to be even Eric Jemba. So it's really scary. When you think of it.
Okay, Manchester United peeps, do you remember Eric Jemba? AB, what do you
so
think
nice they named him twice.
Poor Eric. Wear the number 19 jersey as well. I don't know who I think he may have inherited it from Dwight York as well, which is not the best. But these are all great points, and I'm surprised no one's brought it up. But I just feel that City, coming from last season's very disappointing campaign, where they were humbled in the league by a fantastic Liverpool team, after going on two incredible uncontested leagues, they were knocked out by a team they shouldn't have really been knocked out of in the Champions League. City, I don't believe, had the sufficient time to get over that sort of disappointment with a 10-day preseason or whatever the case it was. Maybe City mentally aren't fully ready for more football with such a short turnaround, and maybe Pep's struggling to get the best out of his players with that. Because I remember, when we called this this Premier League season in a build-up, we all thought City had the correct players to go and dominate this league, especially when we identified Liverpool had a key man dependency. Here's my business terminology coming out on Virgil van Dijk, and we've seen Virgil getting injured very quickly, and now we're worried about Liverpool actually
injury away from being
exactly. But then Diogo Jota will come in and fit in. It seems like Liverpool have got that confidence from last season. With regardless of their injuries, they've just got that swagger about them that makes them sexy to watch and feel like that they can come back from any sort of losing position.
But AB, here's a question for you. Speaking about that, they've tied, they're all footballed out. City and United were the two English teams, and Wolves to a certain extent, they got knocked out very early, were the two English teams who were the last ones in Europe last year, which meant that it's a shortened preseason. And on top of that, you were given that week off in the first week. Preparation-wise, and from a Manchester United perspective, did Harry Maguire need another week in the Greek prison and he'd be fine? and
hard
play well? Like, is it a situation of let's start the league later, halt UEFA Champions League for a bit, and we'll look at it in January? What do you think they needed to do to just make sure that it's fairer on the two of you, but we get the best football on show?
Oh, so what do you think the FA should have done?
FA, UEFA,
the Premier League, so all the governing bodies.
Yeah, do you think you were hard done by the fact that you had a week less or 2 weeks less preparation?
Well, I mean, I think the week break was great in terms of let's be fair about it, because you also can't go and give the Man Uniteds, the Wolves, the Cities another 2 more weeks extra. It's, you got to draw a line in the sand and make a sort of rule. I think United's problems came from the lack of quality signings and exciting transfer market that was promised by certain members of the board, and United didn't deliver. I thought there was a morale shift from the players because they were now concerned, because I don't think United could have ended the season higher than they did. You went and put Chelsea
maybe
to third
if you'd
spot.
made it to the FA Cup final.
Yeah, but I mean, again, we were humbled by Chelsea, but then they got won over by Chelsea or against Chelsea. But leaving the season, Ollie was at the wheel. There were talks of Jadon Sancho coming. Things were great, and then suddenly 3-4 weeks later, nothing happened, and there has to be an effect from that. And that's down to mentality, morale, and I think we're seeing that with City as well, in different facets, though.
Cyrus, more to your team, because your team had a run of, you played Southampton at home, 3-3, you're on a flight on the next day to Krasnodar, which is some random city in Russia, to play there, and you came back, and I don't know who else you played. Oh, it was Burnley, so you were lucky then because you gave Burnley 3. But there's a rhythm that has been missing from a Chelsea side, from a performance perspective. Yes, Frank's got his structure situations happening. Do you think they should have, because we see UEFA's trying to pack all the fixtures to catch up in the Champions League? Yeah. Do you think they should have changed the structure of the Champions League? Is your team suffering from it? Because you also have a massive squad, but it seems like Frank's using the same type of players. Where do you think this? Which fixtures would you have taken away from Chelsea to kind of help them with the season? I think
it's an interesting question, though, because I don't know, and I think it applies actually across the board. Chelsea in particular just seem to have a lot of fixtures, but everybody else does. I mean, United obviously had to play the early kickoff on Saturday. It's not ideal by any stretch, but there have been those moments in various seasons over the course of the years where people will be unhappy that they had to play an early kickoff after having played late on another day. Sometimes you just got to suck it up and carry on playing. Yes, make your protestations known, but you also have to go out there and play. And so it's very difficult for teams to take some other teams seriously when they're leaving the likes of Pogba and Van Der Beek on the bench. Now, to get to my team, I think the critical thing here really is about what Frank said towards the beginning of the season, where he said he is treating the first few games of the season as preseason. And so it's a time for the players to get up to speed in terms of their fitness, in terms of trying to build performances together. And you saw that in the disjointed nature of things. But there were also problems that needed to be fixed. Does Kepa play? Doesn't Kepa play? Then they managed to get Edouard Mendy in, and Mendy's been fantastic. You then having to try and gel certain players into the team. You're looking at like the likes of Antonio Rudiger and realizing that him and Andreas Christensen no longer are one of the preferred centre-back pairing. So every single manager has had to find the bits and pieces that work for them. The same with Mikel Arteta, who has brought in a couple of players, including Agent Zero, another Agent Zero in William.
You can take him back. It's fine.
No, look, you said the same thing about David Luiz and then gave him a new contract. I think Arsenal are just really trying to give themselves the biggest headaches ever, because
it's not Arsenal, it's one man, it's Arteta. It's not Arsenal.
Willian only left because we didn't want to give him a bigger contract. Arsenal were like, we'll just get rid of Gunnosaurus. So anyway, it's true though. I mean, where'd the money come from? So the thing here is that when you look at it from a composition perspective, Frank is then trying to bed in players who've never played in England before, trying to get guys, going into a specific system. Hakim Ziyech got injured in one of the sort of preseason games against Brighton. It was against Brighton, and then missed a lot of game time. Now you see him. He's back to full fitness. He's starting to look like a proper player. And my word, his left foot, if he's not the other son of Zeus, I don't know who is. And so I think the thing is that from a administrative perspective, to close this point out, I don't necessarily think that any of the governing bodies, UEFA, FIFA, Premier League, what have you, could really do anything about trying to adjust the seasons. Because there's a financial imperative, there are contracts as well that are signed that deal with all of the TV money, and all of that money has already been spent by the clubs themselves. So you have to go out and play the games. Where there's the biggest issue is that the Premier League vetoed having 5 substitutes, which I think is an absolutely ridiculous maneuver, because it then puts the pressure on the players who are consistently playing. And then you're going to see the injuries mount, and then you're going to see all sorts of different things affect what happens in the league. Is it actually a bad thing when you're seeing the likes of Leicester and Spurs at the top of the table? I don't know. But I do think there will be a course correction, because some teams will definitely be themselves towards the end of the season.
And as teams get knocked out of competitions, things will even themselves out. You spoke about something interesting, Sai, about the financial imperatives around UEFA and FIFA and everything else. And AB, I'm going to ask you this because you seem to be the most vocal in our group about this. Is there a need to have international football, bearing in mind that UEFA needs money from international football, so does FIFA from the broadcast rights, and also the COVID resurgence in Europe? And also the effect that it has on your team, with players coming into contact with other players who don't have stringent COVID protocols in the countries that they play in. And then on top of that, I'm going to ask Wahid and Dean about this. The 5 substitutions rule, does that help necessarily in alleviating? But AB, I'll start with you.
So I get the financial implications for UEFA and FIFA and all the footballing governing bodies needing their revenue and TV rights, and being in competitions which will give them more revenue eventually, and all of that, and the long-term sustainability of international football. Do I think it's necessary right now in going into November, December, Jan, Feb? Most football we watch is Northern Hemisphere. We all know that Europe is locking down again. Now we're asking players from leagues all over Europe and even South America here or there to go off and play football there, mix with players from different countries, different clubs, and all of that. I don't think it's necessary. However, I think it could have been a lot more creatively planned. So I was a big fan of the Champions League's little mini competition that was held. I believe it was Portugal.
Portugal.
Yeah, Portugal. And then the Europa League one was in Germany. You mustn't forget.
Sorry, I can't forget my roots. And I thought, why not have a sort of UEFA Nations League in a neutral venue or neutral country or one country, and sort of do something like that towards the end of the season? But again, it seems like
That's going to happen. It's called Euro 2021. The only problem is you need teams to play in Euro 2021. So
exactly, and Paul, and that's actually the reason why we're in the mess we're in now. That you have to have qualifiers in order to see who makes it, and thus the knock-on effect is ridiculous because it's not the international games themselves that are the money spinner; it's the Euros. So in essence, if you were able to just somehow magically decide who was going to be at the Euros or at the World Cup without having to go through these international qualifiers, then we'd be able to cut out a lot of this nonsense. And United would stop complaining about resting.
If sport stops again, and we can't not say that it won't, because there's a probability of it happening, then it's all going to get shifted along the lines, and it's not going to help anyone. But
so here's an idea. Here's an idea, and I'm going to shift to Dean and Wahid here. We could have had a larger Euro tournament in May, June, at the end of the season next year, with all the teams who were, because by the time COVID started, the big teams had already qualified for Euro, right? So for the other smaller nations who were still trying to find it out, they could have had a month or 2 week elimination tournament, a single leg elimination tournament in a random country, wherever it might be, Portugal, whoever wants to host it. And then those teams would then feed into wherever Euro would be, and that would save all of this international travel and everything else. The problem is you've got other confederations as well in Africa, Asia, and South America that also, there's an AFCON next year in Cameroon. I don't even think it's going to happen, but people are busy. Looking at the season and looking at the way it's done and the impact as COVID has had, and all the international games going around, and the risk of players contracting it increasing, and I'm going to ask Dean as well. The 5 substitutions rule kind of worked in that shortened format before, as we closed out. Do you think the FA made an error, or the people voting made an error in not allowing managers to have 5 substitutes?
So I'm first going to say that with regards to your whole international travel thing, with regards to the Euros, I think that it's all a moot point. I mean, they might as well just give England the trophy because they're going to win anyway. So we can get around all of this by just giving England the trophy.
I think if we've not learned anything from having England in the last couple of international breaks, England are going nowhere near the trophy. Maybe if they make the trophy in England, then
it might not be.
Because shucks, they have been horrendous.
Football's coming home, but now we go on to the 5 substitutions. So I'm not going to lie. When I first thought about it, and I'm gonna put the caveat in and say that I think I was wrong. When I first thought about it, I thought that the 5 substitutions wasn't a good idea. I thought that we needed to go back to the 3 substitutions that we needed a normal Premier League season. And I thought that the problem with the 5 substitutions is that it makes the gap between big teams and smaller teams even bigger. So now we've talked about the fact that we've talked about the fact that the schedule and the fact of no preseason has bridged the gap. And I felt that 5 subs makes the gap bigger. Squads like United, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, Arsenal have very big squads to choose from. United, if we are down against a Burnley, whatever it is, we can start choosing from seasoned internationals like Cavani, Telles, Van Der Beek, who are seasoned internationals, and to give a big side the opportunity of bringing on 5 substitutes, I thought was starting to become unfair on a smaller club. Fast forward 8 games into the season, or whatever it is, 7, 8 games into the season, and I'm now looking at the injury situation and thinking, okay, but the lack of a preseason has led to the point where these players are just simply overworked. We have to remember the fact that they are human beings. They playing this 90 minutes 3 times a week at the moment, 3 times in 7 days, is just not sustainable. So fast forward into this point of the season, and I think that from a player preservation perspective, the 5 substitutes are needed. I would now look The problem, though, is exactly the problem I had last season, is that we played with a set of rules to a point. So we played with three subs to a point, and then we played with 5 substitutes after that. And again, this season, it seems like we're going to play with a certain set of rules to a point, and then a new set of rules on there. So I feel like the mistake was made. If they're going to reinstate the 5 substitutes, again, I'm going to be saying that we're playing with different sets of rules through a season, which I'm not a fan of. That's my big issue. I like consistency. Yeah, I like consistency. I think the set of rules you start the season with should be the set of rules you end them with. Obviously, last season was different because of COVID. This season, I mean, we've started knowing how it was going to go. So I simply don't have an answer to the question, because from one perspective, yes, I do think 5 substitutes are necessary, but from another, I like consistency in rules.
Dean, I'm going to ask you to not sit on the fence, but 11 clubs were keen on this, but you need 14 clubs to change it, and the managers may opt to change it somewhere along the line. But here's the thing. I watched Spurs 2 weeks ago in Belgium. They were 1-0 down at halftime against Antwerp, and there was a series of 5 substitutions that Mourinho made to try change the game into his favor, and it didn't work. Spurs ended up losing, but that's just for my little happiness there. What do you think around this 5? Do you think it's needed for injuries? Seems like you don't have a lot of injuries this time at Spurs, which is very unusual for a Spurs side.
Yeah, I don't think it just yet. Gareth Bale was sitting with an ice pack on his ankle. No, I do agree with what Wahid's saying. I do think the small club versus big club debate over the five substitutes is a very valid debate, but it obviously also doesn't apply to gargantuan clubs like United.
No, it does not.
My feelings on the 5 substitutes, and that's exactly it. I would have preferred if it stayed in, right? Just because I think everyone knew that this wasn't going to be a normal season. We knew that in June. Everyone knew it wasn't going to be a normal year, a normal season. Things were going to be different, and at the end of the day, you kind of have to preserve your players. Having said that, though, clubs also knew that it wasn't going to be a normal season. The pandemic didn't hit a month ago, and you should have been able to, or if you planned correctly, which I'm going to say Spurs did, you went out and you strengthened your team in the positions that you needed to strengthen it in, right? If before United bought Telles, if Luke Shaw got injured, who are you going to bring in? I mean, find some makeshift person. Same with Van Dijk, same with all those other clubs where you completely dependent, or not completely dependent, but you're dependent on a certain player in a position. If that gets injured, you're ruined, basically. So
that's why you have youth teams. Brandon Williams, he came in as a defensive option.
It's the same as that Liverpool central defender that came in the other week that I said, who's he?
Jones, yeah.
No one knows who they are, and no one, it's fine. I get the fact that you need to develop the players, but I think, there also becomes a point in time where you kind of have to say,
Dean, like we could have said, who the hell is Jotter Tanganga? But I mean, like,
I'm sorry, he was in an Amazon Prime documentary. Go watch it. You'll find out.
He is the star of the Mourinho, supporting actor, Jotter Tanganga. Where is he, by the way?
He's
still
just chilling at home.
Yeah, still
Is
there.
he injured?
No, he's not injured. He's coming back. The thing is, what the thing is? Mourinho's trying to find his solid back four. Okay, I think he's got the wing back sorted. He's just trying to find the proper mix between Reguilon and Dyer. And honestly, I would prefer to have Tanganga on instead of Dyer. But what's also clear from All or Nothing
but
is
Eric speaks Portuguese. It's easy.
That's exactly it. He's not gonna get rid of Dyer anytime soon.
If he's not having stomach troubles, he's okay. So Jess,
with regards to what Dean said, he talked about planning, and this is just somewhere where I know AB has had a lot to say about it, and I just think that from one perspective, we do actually need to remember that as much as there was a lot of huff and puff about United summer signings, none of them would necessarily have improved the first 11, but all of them would have improved the squad. So you could look at it and think that United actually did go and improve their squad, thinking that the season would be one where 3 substitutes would be used, injuries would become a thing and we needed a bigger squad. So there is that from a planning perspective that United did go and improve their squad along with Spurs, not necessarily the first 11. So yeah, there is that.
Every United signing improved the overall squad except Alex Telles, who was signed for a first choice left back because Luke Shaw only has 10 games a season that he's allowed to give before
So he's got 2 more.
You get. Well, I mean, 10 games throughout in Champions League and all of that because Luke Shaw eats too much.
He's already played more than that. He's even played in what's that thing? That Carabao situation that Spurs wants to win.
Yes. Guys, Luke Shaw
everyone wants to win it. That's why he's still in it.
Ever since the delivery launched in the UK, Luke Shaw's been a casualty. That's all I gotta say.
No, but I think exactly that though. I think your second 11 this season is just as important as your first 11, and it's probably the first season in a very long time that you're going to see that this is really where your squad depth is going to be tested. I mean, as far as it always is, but this is really the season where it's going to determine that.
And if you look at Chelsea, Kai Havertz was injured. They had Hakim Ziyech in there just to put Tammy Abraham in. It seemed like, hey, he's not missed. Gents, we're going to talk about VAR, but we'll move it to next week. Let's talk about the signings. It's been a quarter way through the season. Many people have been signed. Some have not come, Jadon Sancho. But let's see where you guys.
Because didn't want to come to your club. Pretty easy.
Why?
Guys, I've also got people who we haven't signed and I wanted in there. Hussein Awa. I'm still crying. I'm still angry, but it's okay. Ganosaurus left too, so that's great. Yeah. He got a golfer.
He didn't leave. He was booted.
He was booted out. Dean got a golfer who should be playing at the Masters this weekend. He won't be playing for Wales.
That's why it's the international break. Best of both worlds.
Chelsea couldn't sell Kepa, but he's still there and he's going to come back somehow in the season. So we've all got our little people we're afraid of. But let's look at the signings that necessarily have made the teams well, or the top signings in each team, and give me a number and a rationale as to why you gave them that number. I'm going to start
out of 10.
Yeah, out of 10. So Diego Jotter, Liverpool. I know Liverpool have signed Thiago, but we've only seen 45 minutes of him. It was spectacular. But Diego Jotter, I'm gonna go with an 8. He has exceeded my expectations, and he's knocking on the door to kick Firmino out this team, which I think would be great. Dean, what do you think?
I'm going to go 8.1 just because I'm always ahead of an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, buy one DVD.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. 122 minutes, we're top of the log. It's more than Arsenal. No, but I would agree. I don't think any of us would have seen Jotter doing what he did this season. And to be honest, he's been amazing. So the role that he's playing now, especially the fact that Klopp's playing 2 or all 4 of them at the same time, I think it's been really good. So yeah, Jotter 8.1. I would 100% agree.
AB?
I'm going to go with a solid 8.3. Skipping me by 2 for some reason. He's been excellent. I really feel that if he was maybe 10 inches taller, he'd be starting way ahead of Firmino. But Firmino's got that aerial presence, which he doesn't use, but he's still got it. That's kind of
physicality.
Him. Yeah,
short will never win. Hey, it's tough out there. Cyrus.
I agree with your assessment of an 8. And if there's one thing I want to say, that Diego Jota is actually what Xherdan Shaqiri was, what Liverpool thought they were signing. He's used every single bit of his skill and done it exactly the way that they wanted him to. And he was also one of the bigger fish in a very small pond at Wolves, and he's flourishing as opposed to Sean Wright-Phillips. Some players just know what it takes to perform on the big stage.
What did Sean Wright-Phillips do to you?
Not much. That's pretty much his career. Anyway, carry on.
I don't give Liverpool players pass marks, so we'll go with the 3.
Oh my word.
Okay, So I do agree with the assessment. He's been very good. I will say this about Liverpool in general: they have gotten to the point of, I would say, along the lines of a Ferguson's United, where no matter who comes in, he's coming into such a solid squad setup, such a harmonious squad that they have all the tools to do well. I don't think Jotter would be doing as well as he is for Liverpool if he were put into United or Chelsea or Arsenal or City. I think there's a very special harmony within that Liverpool squad, which is allowing new signings to come in and do well. So yes, very good signing for Liverpool. I don't know if he would have done that well outside of that squad.
Okay. That's a very good one. It's like Phil Jones. Phil Jones looked like a world beater when Sir Alex was there. And the moment Sir Alex left,
pretty much a lot of players that were at United. Darren Fletcher. Let's go on.
Darren Fletcher, that's an unfair one. He did extremely well when he moved to West Brom and Stoke. He still did very well. He was a very important player at United.
Let's not call him extremely well at West Brom. He played well there. It was West Brom. Same as Phil.
You could also play well at West Brom, Wahid.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Manchester City. I'm not sure, but I'll probably even allow you to pick whichever signing you want. I couldn't pick between Ake and Ruben Diaz, but I'm going to pick Ruben Diaz because he was brought in to shore up the defense because they were running around in 6s and 7s. I'm going to give Ruben Diaz a 6. He's done what Pep's wanted him to do, trying to solidify the defense. I need to see more, but I don't think he can survive with the rigors of the Premiership and the way it's going. So I'm just going to give him a 6 for now.
Sounds good.
Your noisy neighbor that side? You also don't give them ratings?
No, but forget the fact that it's City and they're as bad as Liverpool in my book. But I just think it's another classic City signing. Way overpaid for this player. I mean, Ruben Diaz was their third choice centre back or fourth choice centre back on their list when they started looking down, and then they went and paid £62 million as part of the 771 million pounds they've spent under Pep. So I don't know if he's worth that kind of money. Nothing that I've seen from him so far suggests he's worth that kind of money. He's not a bad player, but he's not a great player. He's not the type of player who's going to take you to the next level. So, but if we're going to beat Harry Maguire with the 80 million pound stick, then we need to start beating this player with a 65 million pound stick as well. I mean, he's not a 65 million pound player.
So what's your number? Or is it
5.
a 0? 5. Average. Bang average. Dean, is he bang average to you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you look at that City defense, and they were at a bit of a shambles. But I do think he's brought a little bit of confidence. He does look good on the ball from a City perspective. But again, I agree with Wahid. I don't think he's a signing that you go, wow, it's going to be a great player for a number of years to come. I think it's very similar to when they signed John Stones.
Like Otamendi, similar type of signing, like third or fourth down the line.
Yeah, it's kind of a signing that you just go, okay, cool, City's doing City. They're going to go spend way too much money on this defense and then find out his replacement in January or next year. It's just one of those. So yeah, 5, I reckon.
Cyrus, are they being harsh?
I'd say that in terms of the way he's being assessed, perhaps, but I'd also give him a 6. I do think, though, that he seems to be a bit of a bits and pieces. He seems to be the Portuguese Michael Keane. But I do think, though, what you will find, especially with clubs like City, and you don't get this with teams like United, although they're gargantuan and they have deep pockets, the reality is that when clubs know that you have a billionaire owner, the price for things goes just 1% above Woolworth's pricing. And so the problem is that at clubs like Chelsea's managed to sort of push back over the years and said, there's absolutely no way we're going to pay X, Y, and Z for this player. At City, they go, no, we're not interested. And then eventually they say, okay, fine. I mean, the transfer deadline's tomorrow. So, they don't have as much sway in terms of the negotiations that they make. They just go out and splurge the cash anyway. And it's a great way to clean the stolen money. So, but I'd still say a 6, yeah.
Stolen money. AB, what's your assessment? What's your number?
The same number on his back, number 3. I don't really care. He's a City player. I literally just took the 6 and divided by 2 just because, yeah.
Okay.
To be fair, City haven't really been impressive, but it hasn't been because of their defense. I think going forward, they have a massive.
Although,
Okay, I'm just going to 3.
Can I just jump in here? That's interesting because we have had the comparisons between Diaz and Maguire, and would this signing of Diaz then, because City are sitting at 10th in the league versus United's 14th, does that have any, say in where they are? Because is Diaz better than Maguire?
I mean, remember, United did concede 6 goals in one game. So let's just, I can't remember who it was.
It was that too.
Liverpool conceded one game and they're top of the log. So,
but yeah, I mean, United, if they win the game in hand, go and tied with Everton, considering the season Everton's had, hasn't been the worst of starts. But yeah, I mean, you look at that City team and the way they play, it doesn't feel like a City team that we've seen for the last 2 to 3 years. And I can't put my finger on it. Yeah, but that's
okay. So
if we win our game,
so the next
if
one,
my
I'm going to
auntie
go to
had
the
balls,
United.
he'd be my uncle.
Okay. So the next player is Donny Van Der Beek. I don't know if there's any other United players you want to talk about, but I don't think they've played. Donny came on, scored a goal in his first 15 minutes. He's been riding the bench for quite some time. So my number for him is a 4 because he looks good on the bench. He looks great coming on. But if he's not going to start, which everyone thought he was going to, then what's apart from the fact that you want to do a bomb squad situation? So I'll give him actually, let me be kind. Let me give him a 5. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. AB, am I being crazy?
No. So I'm going to give Donny, for doing what he's been asked to do, a solid 6. Unfortunately, his playing time is out of his hands. It even feels like this man has been signed by not Solskjaer. It's been signed by someone else, which, considering how United joined,
it was signed by someone else.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be a club signing. I mean, we all know that Ollie gave a list, and he had certain names on that list, and he didn't get those certain names. But yeah, I mean, Donny, when he's played, looks good. He looks lively. He moves the ball from defense to the forwards, which is exactly what you sort of need. So I'm going to give him a 6, and I think I'm being quite biased here. So.
Yeah, that might be the word for it.
Yeah.
What's your number?
Donny is competing with someone who came from the summer budget but was bought in the winter transfer window. And you need to remember that player is Bruno Fernandes. He is as new as anybody else, and he probably gets like a 9.5 out of 10. So when we're considering Donny and what he's come in for, he is come in to provide cover for the player who is, to all intents and purposes, our best player and our most important player. So we not having this issue of Fernandes going down in a similar way to Van Dijk and then having absolutely nobody to replace Fernandes. So we need to remember Donny's role is really covering for our other summer signing.
So what's your number?
He did 5.5 because he hasn't played, but I think that will be reassessed by the time we get to March, when we've seen him get a run of game, not necessarily a run of game, but enough minutes over the course of the season. So right now, 5.5, but I think by May, Donny would have played as many minutes as anybody else in the squad.
Dean, you don't agree with this, it seems.
No, I mean, Donny chose the wrong club, right? He could have come to Spurs, he chose the wrong club. Simple as that.
Where was he going to play at Spurs?
Doesn't matter, he just chose the wrong club.
So then what's your number with him?
Honestly, I'm going to go NA because I don't know.
Okay.
No, you literally can't comment on how he's played. You just haven't seen enough of him. His point, by March we'll give him enough minutes. Guys are complaining about fixture congestion. Play him. This is the time you're supposed to play him. So, yeah, honestly, I can't comment on Donny Van Der Beek. But yeah, I'll give him a -1 for his decision-making skills because he should have come to the bench.
Cyrus?
Yeah, look, I'll be kind and give him a 4, and that's primarily because he doesn't even when he comes on, to use NBA terminology, he's garbage minutes, So
Garbage time.
he's not expected to make a difference, and I think that's one of the key things here. But I'll keep it as simple as that. I'll give him a 4.
Okay, so we're gonna go to your team. I don't know. You can choose whoever you want to rate, or you guys can all rate. I'm going to rate Timo Werner at Chelsea. I think he's been great. I gave Jotter an 8. I'll give Werner an 8.5. I think there's still a lot more to see from him. I think Frank has found that Timo has to play in the middle, but I think he's done the best that he could, and I've been impressed. Sai, what do you think, and who are you rating?
Timo's been good. I'd actually say, look, your rating of him with an 8 is actually pretty kind. He's taken some good penalties in the last couple of games. But in terms of his link-up play, the stuff that he's doing in between the lines, I haven't really been all that impressed. But I do think that, he's one of those signings that will need a little bit more time to get in there. For me personally, Ben Chilwell has probably been one of the key ones. It's tough because Chelsea made so many signings and all of them are making a massive difference. Mendy's making a difference. I'm going to give him a 7. Thiago Silva at 36 years old, he might be at an 8. Havertz playing quite a few games might also get a 7. But I think Chilwell really is, and obviously Hakim Ziyech, who has been absolutely incredible. But I'll give him a 7.5 because he's still getting to full fitness. Chilwell, though, really is the difference maker. Assisting, scoring goals from left back, it's what Chelsea have, and he's been also very reliable defensively. You're not necessarily getting the run of the land if you're attacking Chelsea down that flank anymore. Where I know teams like United would just say, okay, Daniel James, you see that Marcos Alonso, just run at him. That's been erased. Thank goodness.
Okay. Wahid, which Chelsea player would you like to rate, or is it just Timo? I'll say Timo. Which one would you like to rate?
Well, yeah, Timo Werner, I must be honest with you. He's just striking me as a player who is not as good as Pulisic on the left and struggling in the center just a little bit at the moment. It's almost like Abraham or Giroud would give Chelsea a better option through the middle with the way they're playing with the attacking midfielders. So Timo Werner, I'm going to give a 6.5. Ben Chilwell, I'll give an 8.5. As Cyrus said, just absolutely fantastic so far. And I think Dean and I mentioned in one episode that we thought he was the signing of the summer before anybody had kicked a ball. And he's done nothing to disprove that notion in my head. He is very good attacking wise. He's very reliable defensively. I think on the weekend he took as many shots on goal as Timo Werner. I think the stats showed he had as many shots. And he's getting up and down that left flank. And anything would be an upgrade on Marcos Alonso. Luke Shaw would be an upgrade on Marcos Alonso. But they've gone and got
defending wise, yes. But in terms of goal scoring, I contest that though, because
Luke assisted this weekend. Put some respect on Luke.
Yeah, 1 assist versus Marcos Alonso's free kick brilliance.
Yeah, fair enough.
Luke Shaw has been assisting the McDonald's revenue stream since 2017.
I think it might be Greg's Pies more than McDonald's.
Dean, which Chelsea players impressed you the most, and what's your number on them? You can give me all 3.
Yeah, look, I think enough's been said about Chilwell and Werner. To be honest, we spoke about it last week. I think Hakim is very close to signing of the season. Saw him when he played against Spurs in Champions League 2 years ago, and he was insane there. I wanted everyone. Well, I couldn't understand why everyone wasn't going after him that season straight after.
29, that's why.
Doesn't matter.
He's old. He's old.
He would walk into a United team.
Cavani.
He would walk into it.
Like that youngster Edinson Cavani,
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, I'd go
money.
Ziyech, I'd go as high as 9. The way he's looked last week and this week, I think he's literally going to be one of those players that it's going to be kind of like a breakout season, and everyone's going to start looking at him with even more eyes, world football-wise. So I'd go 9.
AB, on Chelsea signings, who are you most impressed by? What's your number for them?
I'm only going to pick one player. I'm going to give him a solid 9 because I think he's been Chelsea's most important signing. I think that's Edouard Mendy. The man's conceded 2 goals for Chelsea. 2. That's it. And if you think about Kepa I mean, that's Kepa
let's
like
think
in
about
10
Kepa.
minutes. And I think, and I love goalkeepers, and it's just something about having this domineering presence, in your goal that just feeds some confidence to your backline, which stems to the midfield and allows your attacking, quadrants or whatever, your tridents, whatever, to just feel a lot more reassured. And I was very disappointed that Mendy was fit for that United game, because the amount of chances that we had in that game to seal the deal, and he just came up and just did his job, was incredible. So I know Chelsea haven't conceded a goal in the Champions League so far, and that's halfway through the group stages. That's amazing so far. And I know no team has gone through a group phase keeping clean sheets. I remember Michael Carrick messed that up for us 1 year, unfortunately. But yeah, Edouard Mendy has just impressed me so much, and I think for signing him for 20 odd mil is a steal in this sort of market.
Is Edouard Mendy that good, or are we judging him by the benchmark set by Kepa?
I think it's a little bit of both, though, because I agree with you. I don't think he's the world class yet. I don't think he's Jan Oblak. But I do think he's got the capability of getting better than he already is. The thing is, what he does give that Chelsea team is solidity and rigidity. When you have that at the back, there were so many saves he's made, which are simple saves that Kepa was just not making. And so it obviously then expanded all of the issues that were happening at the Chelsea backline. And when you look at it, I mean, I don't even think somebody like David De Gea is as good aerially when it comes to corners and collecting crosses. He's just, his length and his size really makes that side of things completely different for Chelsea. You remember, whenever Chelsea got a free kick or a corner against them, everybody thought the sweet shop was open. Now that isn't the case, and there's two players who've really made that difference, being Mendy and Thiago Silva, really.
Yes. So let's move on to the last one. We'll talk about the others as the season goes on. But Spurs, Bale or Højbjerg? I'm going to rate Højbjerg because Gareth Bale's been playing Europa and he's been flat. I think Pierre Højbjerg's been the signing for Mourinho. He's done the job that Mourinho wants, and I'll give him a 7. He's a very good midfield in that 3. Dean, what's your assessment of both or just one?
It's going to go 10 out of 10 straight.
It's on the DVD extra features.
Yeah, but Højbjerg is a 10 out of 10 signing. I'm not even going to. That wasn't even a debate. I think he genuinely did. He fixed the problem. He's exactly what Mourinho needed. You look at him, he's what we're calling him, and in the Spurs circles, he's the captain within the captain. He's just literally running that show. You look at some of the interceptions.
Hold up. Captain within the what?
Within the captain.
So he's our captain within our captain. Because we've got Kane and Lloris. He's our captain of the midfield, essentially, of his little role. He's the captain.
I thought that might be like a gay porn reference, but I guess this really more about where they are on the pitch. Okay.
Different DVD, Cyrus. Different DVD.
Okay.
So Bale, I'd go. Honestly, Bale, I'd go. In terms of morale, I think he's brought a lot, but in terms of his actual performances signing, I mean, max is 6. He's not running rampant at the Bale that you knew. No one expected that, but yeah, go 6 Bale, 10.
These Spurs signings, the two, I'm saying Bale or Højbjerg or anybody else, maybe even Reguilon, who would you like to rate?
Oh, that's a fantastic one, because I absolutely love Reguilon. And the thing for me was Chelsea were linked with him for a long time as well. And everybody kept Chilwell, I think, turns out to be the better signing perhaps. But Reguilon's been fantastic. I must say, though, that in terms of for Spurs, Højbjerg has been the absolute perfect signing. And if there's one thing that you must always remember with Mourinho, when he asks for something, give it to him. He has a system in mind. He knows what he wants to get out of the team, regardless of whether or not you're gargantuan. And you have to just give him what he wants. And once you do that, you will get, some reward for it. So I think Højbjerg, and I'll probably give him a 7.5, maybe even almost an 8. Reguilon, maybe I'd also give him a 7. And Bale, because he's just made the Spurs guys happy, I'll give him a 5.
Are you even watching the Premier League?
Yes, I am.
Wahid, what What do you think of Dean's favorite players?
Yeah, Højbjerg, I think solid player, and as Sarah said, that's the type of player who Mourinho will want, and you need to give Mourinho, and Mourinho will do wonderful things when given the tools he wants. Højbjerg, I think 8.5. Very, very, very good player. Reguilon, I'm going to give 7, and I'll say this: he's from a performance perspective, he's probably like an 8.5. From a squad planning perspective, he's like a 4 or 3, because the financial, because the control of the financial aspect of that player doesn't lie with Tottenham; it lies with Real Madrid. So he's basically on a very glorified loan in North London at a small club.
Yeah.
And the big club is going to come back and going to take their player, and he will move into Real Madrid's first team at some point. So yes, from a performance perspective, great. From a planning perspective, bad.
And when he's 36, he'll take over Luke Shaw at left back at Manchester United.
Probably.
What are you
talking about
with the Spurs signings?
When you talk about 36, you're talking about 36. You're talking about the size of Luke Shaw's waist.
Guys,
let's not go there. We are not going to fat shame people in this show. Hashtag.
Baby, what do you think of Spurs signings?
Luke Shaw.
So yeah, I think everything's been said about the Bales, the Højbjergs, the Reguilons, the Shaws. I was really impressed by one player this last weekend, so it's kind of swaying me. Because that Spurs and West Brom game was, riveting, and it was a great nap for about 80 minutes, and literally I woke up and I was like, oh wow, 0-0, great, Spurs aren't going top of the log. And then Matt Doherty just pulled out this piece of magic with that cross, and I was actually just so impressed. And if you think about great teams, I don't want to call Spurs a great team, but great teams find a way.
You literally just called it a great team.
I didn't say Spurs are a great team. I'm just saying they are teams who are great, who find a way to win late on with some moment of magic, and Doherty produced this moment of magic that Kane also produced as well, because that's a tough header. That was almost Chicharito-esque with his headering. That Doherty, I think, yes, he's had to change his position because he went from a very attacking wing back at Wolves to more normal right back, defensively minded, and he does now bomb forward depending on the situation. He did incredibly well, and I think he'll just go quietly about doing his business and filling that role, because I don't think he's missed many minutes in a Spurs shirt as well. I think he's started almost every game, and he's just come off for the odd tactical rest here or there. So Matt Doherty, I'll give him a solid 8 for the work he's done.
So Wahid wants to talk about Ndombele, who was signed last year, played a bit, then Mourinho came, sent him back to wherever Mourinho sends players back to, but he's found
to the factory.
Do we consider him a new signing?
Dean?
I do. I definitely do.
He's a record signing, isn't he?
I mean, I mentioned it in a previous show as well, and Wahid gave me nonsense about it. But I honestly think you look at what Ndombele did at Lyon, and he was incredible there, right? Poch brought him in. He did well the first game. He played Villa. He scored. Everyone was like, "This is everything we've ever dreamed of." And since then, he just kind of tailed off. He didn't really do anything. Got lost in the mid-season, and he disappeared. So.
Then he asked for playing time on All or Nothing.
Fair. But then, 45 minutes into that Burnley game, he got subbed off and we didn't see him again. And Mourinho was very public about how he criticized him, very open about it. And like I mentioned in the previous show, it shows the commitment by both players. They've both had interviews about it. Ndombele said that they both decided to put their egos aside and just focus on football. And I think it has been one of the greatest turnarounds that we've seen. Definitely in a Spurs shirt, from a player that's gone from nothing to something. And like I've said, he's fulfilling that Moussa Dembele role to a point where it's pretty close on. The way you're actually seeing that number 28 shirt running up and down a pitch, it's a bit of a weird sight for me still. But I definitely would agree it's a new signing and one of the best new signings.
Okay. So we've come to the end of the show. Final thoughts, gents. Any other players we haven't mentioned that should get a notable mention in this from the club profile?
Ross Barkley.
Ross Barkley. I was about to say exactly that.
Okay.
And I did mention him.
Yes,
Can we
but
talk about how useless his call was of Adam Lallana at Brighton being a great player? If you ever wanted to know how to not follow someone, follow Wahid, and then you'll know exactly what players are useless.
We live and die by the people that we think are going to be amazing and then turn out not to be, you know.
So my point is, no, this is the final one similar to AB. I think AB's going to call me on this one. James Rodriguez at Everton. I think he's turned them into some sort of a competitive unit, which without Richarlison is nothing seemingly, but him and Richarlison,
they can't win without Richarlison. It's a weird thing, guys.
It's a curse. It's like he's cursed them for the rest of their existence. So that they're keeping him. But thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Slightly longer show, but a great one because we've got international break and there's no football on. So enjoy like Wahid and Dean England playing. I don't even know who they're playing. All I know is Guy Osaka's in the team, so woo-hoo. But outside of that, and I think Mason Greenwood's been left behind, but we won't talk about that.
He has to go and sleep alone.
Yes, he does. But remember to subscribe, like, and follow, and also interact with us on these various platforms. And as I get this off, wait, what did I just do? Oh, yes. It close out the show. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Next week, we'll be back preparing for the weekend's fixtures. If you thought about fixture congestion, you haven't seen nothing yet. From myself and the guys at the Cheap Seats. Remember to share it to your friends and family. Lesale.